2 years ago, we first heard about New World, an upcoming sandbox MMO developed by Amazon Studios. You guys remember this? Oh, how time flies. It was revealed at the mostly unviewed, unknown Amazon unboxing event. It was streamed to roughly 6,000 to 10,000 people on Twitch TV, and I said I'd cover it. In fact, we did a video back then, which many of you guys enjoyed and wanted to see more. Well, for the first time in a long time, New World has started doing exciting things. There are early details, including, yes, alpha signups apparently, even though it seems to just be routing us through to the Amazon page for it. So, this video is to remind us what was going on with this MMO, why we should even care, and pretty much recap everything there is to know. Starting with this.
New World is an alternate colonial America where superstition is fact and monsters are real. Alchemy and sorcery exist in this vast world where blessed blades and summoned spirits clash with eldritch powers and restless dead. Guard yourself with sacred relics, spirit charms, and words of power. Protect your settlement from player bandits and supernatural horrors with arcane wards and ritual magic. Or adventure out into the landscape to discover strange, cursed, and mysterious lands.
Because, I don't know, call me a sucker, but I find myself really kind of intrigued and excited for it. To wind the clock back, you'll recall the Amazon unboxing event wasn't just talking about this MMO, it actually revealed 3 games to us, and one of the highlights was the engine all of them were using, Amazon's Lumberyard. One of the big principles behind the engine, and thus the games too, we presumed, was to do with social interaction, integration with Twitch, and how maybe games could utilize that. Well, a lot of those old things that were in discussion seem to have kind of fallen by the wayside. First of all, we've heard nothing that's Lumberyard specific to do with contemporary New World information. And as to the other games, one of them, the one that was frankly in the most presentable, playable state and got most of the focus, Breakaway, has actually just announced 4 months ago it's not even a game anymore. That's right, all that excitement and buzz has led to nothing over here on the Breakaway subreddit. To a whopping 40 upvotes, we have a message from Not Vert of Amazon Game Studios. While we have developed many ideas and made a lot of progress, we also set a very high bar for ourselves, and in spite of our efforts, we didn't achieve the breakthrough that made the game what we all hoped it could be. After a lot of soul-searching, the team decided to focus on new ideas. As a result, Breakaway is no longer in active development. So yeah, what a freaking shame. I don't know what's sadder, the fact that the game never manifested into something greater, or that the announcement of its ceased development only managed to galvanize 37 comments from people. What a stinger. And so I guess the question for New World fans might be, did some of the talent that was working on this now move over to the MMO, or as yet many more, as I'd presume there are, projects still going on in the background? Now, I know what you're thinking, and that's that Breakaway doesn't have to mean anything for New World. Let's be clear, Amazon Game Studios is a label for multiple different development cells and studios around the United States. But I do find the fall of Breakaway really quite telling. One of the big things that we think of for Amazon and why we're excited about this MMO is the idea that Amazon is huge, that it has unlimited budget almost, that it can push things through that other studios looking to create new MMOs wouldn't be able to. That Amazon might have a shot because it is so big and MMOs need to go big or they have to go home. And yet here we can see one of the projects they were talking about really did fall flat on its face, and I wonder if that knocks our confidence now as we move into New World, whether something similar will happen there too. Though we should all appreciate they were very different studios. So, back to the unboxing event. Here were the main details from back then. They were very few and thin on the ground. Number one, it is an MMO. There was some doubt initially from communities whether that was true, whether the devs would blatantly label it as one. Frankly, MMO as a franchise branding is becoming increasingly rare over the years, so people did want that confirmation, and it's true, they're still, right up till now in 2018, calling New World an MMO. The other side as well being that it's an open world sandbox. sandbox. The word sandbox being very important. It does push it into a different niche of MMO, and one that you may have less confidence they're good at actually delivering. Or if it's not a full sandbox, we're going to be expecting significant sandbox elements with theme park stuff to prop it up. The last thing really that we heard about New World that was exciting beyond just the fact that it's Amazon is an interesting setting, that being of the conquistadors, the New World era, exploration and travel into a mysterious new land with guns, but magic and other interesting elements mixed in there too. This concept art of the scary mask, the bleeding eyes, the Latin written saying eternal life and so on was a cool aesthetic and mix that definitely captured my attention more than anything else. The setting being one of the biggest things it had going for it. The rest, mostly marketing buzz, let's be honest. Vague ties to those social lumberyard interactions that now seem to have fallen away heavily. And then, silence. Yesterday, that being August 22nd, as we roll into Gamescom soon, New World made their first tweet. This is @PlayNewWorld, and they simply say, "Hello from New World. We have been hard at work, and we're excited to introduce you to New World very soon. We'll be sharing more information about the game in the coming days and months, so stay tuned." The New World team with a couple of hashtags there. So yeah, it seems this is it. They've hit that moment where they're ready to start delivering information. First of all, throwing this lovely screenshot at us, quite high res. They've got their logo on the bottom right. People have squinted and speculated about the trees here because, as you'll find in the video very soon, we have heard that there'll be lumbering and destructible terrain and so on, but not too much else to grab from it. There also, for what it's worth, is a separate Twitter account for Lumberyard itself that is fairly active, and I would expect to see several things going from that in the future. They're actually looking for feedback from devs about the engine right now as a bit of interesting parallel news. General consensus is that they probably seized upon Gamescom, where they'll be previewing stuff to press at the very least, and you'll see various website articles and media releases throughout the event and then beyond into the year. With this tweet came two things. First, an update to the official website we'll look at in a second, and also a fairly meaty article from Tech Advisor, who so far as I make this video are the only people to appear to have talked about their hands-on with the game. Just before we read through what they saw, there's kind of a big topic we've been skirting around to do with the development talents behind the game. And it's a thing we sort of messed up 2 years ago, and I want to set people right on. One reason many people were excited about New World is because they'd seen that Amazon Game Studios, the new up-and-comer with potentially a lot of money, had been siphoning talent from other MMO studios. In particular, in the Seattle area, Guild Wars 2's ArenaNet employees seem to be moving en masse over to AGS. And so the natural, clear speculation then for the community was, hey, these people that we liked working on Guild Wars 2 are now off using their philosophies, their talents, their understanding of the MMO genre to build New World into something great. That's what caught the attention of many Guild Wars 2 fans and ex-fans alike to see what could come from AGS. But in the end, that was all wrong. Completely and utterly wrong. Remember how there were 3 games in development, 3 studios? Turns out the ArenaNet talent was, if not entirely, 99% headed not to New World, but to one of the other games, that being the silent one still in the background, Crucible. A fact very quickly brought to my attention by none other than Steve Fowler himself in the comments of that last video, saying, WP, us ArenaNet folks are not on New World, although we are really big fans. That game is being done in Irvine at Double Helix. Colin, Eric, Jeff, Chris W. Peters, and I are in Seattle, working directly with the 2 game studios here. So, if you're watching this video as a Guild Wars 2 fan, I would seriously temper your expectations that New World ends up anything like that MMO, which, depending on your perspective and if you're looking for something fresh, like I kind of am, could be for the worse or better. There is a suggestion from Steve there of some collaboration, but I wouldn't get too excited about it. Realistically, that might mean you should be more interested in Crucible, that is not an MMO at all, and based on the limited information we had 2 years back, would now sound more aligned with what we would call battle royales these days, and we've seen how much that genre has flared up. As information on that end comes out, I will definitely be keeping a close eye. Back to New World and the Tech Advisor article, it really does have some brilliant information. Here's some of the first tangible stuff you will ever hear about this MMO. I will note that the article itself is pretty poorly written. There's a lot of typos. It seems pretty vague at places. They're not even clear on the circumstances whereby they got their hands on the game, but it's obviously had some kind of limited in scope playthrough, probably walked through by the devs at various key points. They give us several new facts and screenshots I'll edit in on the background, and we'll see what we think as we go through. So, first they give us some broad scope information and lore. New World is a sandbox MMORPG set around the 17th century in an alternate historical timeline in which another continent was found by the settlers traveling from Europe across the Atlantic Ocean. This particular continent is one of magic, danger, mystery, and riches, and will feel broadly familiar as an MMO setting. So this is brilliant. We get actual tangible facts and confirmation of what you could pretty much speculate from the press and media that filtered out over the past 24 months. But very concrete sense and idea here that it's the 17th century and somehow there's another continent involved. Probably the mechanism that plopped it onto Earth will tie into our ability to use magic and whatnot. We've also, of course, seen a lot of the theming and styling of the game. Feels really quite dark, that they don't describe at all here in the text, but looking back at some of that old concept art, this image of this guy's warped face and the plagues and sense of some of the dangers and beasts that might be out there, really does paint a fairly grim setting. Moving on, they rapidly start talking about something that's really important, and that's how New World is going to be different to MMOs of the past. We all have a reason for being excited about a new one of these. It's because prior MMOs we're burned out on, or we feel that they haven't delivered certain ideals in a certain way. How is New World going to be different? How is New World going to be better? Is something everyone will ask when considering this game. And here's what they say. New World is focusing on a couple of key aspects that will set it apart from the current mainstream MMORPG stock. That's good to hear. First of all, there are no classes. The game supports a wide array of skills and specializations that you are free to pursue and work towards as you wish. If you'd like to tank, heal, support, do damage as a sneaky rogue or a powerful mage, all of these options are available to you. So I'm not too convinced by this paragraph. First of all, no classes, that sounds fine to me. It doesn't sound like a reinvention of the wheel or anything particularly amazing. Don't be duped into thinking this is indicative of some big gameplay shift. We've seen many different RPGs basically approximate class design and class-oriented play without formally labeling a system as such or locking you into one class the entirety of your character's lifetime. We might expect something like how Monster Hunter utilizes weapons, or any number of other games that can just define your combat capabilities without classes. So I don't really care about that too much. And then sadly, they say they're doing a lot of things to set it apart from current mainstream MMORPG stock. And that's their one example. The other stuff they basically demonstrate is that we've got Trinity-oriented group combats, which I am perfectly open to, but is hardly different to boilerplate MMO experiences, and this fact here that there are going to be multiple skills. But they only contextualize those skills in terms of their combat capabilities. This doesn't speak anything about non-combat skills, which I personally think are a very big part of making a successful MMO. So the paragraph doesn't really say much to me. Moving on, they do talk about something more tangible, admittedly with a lot of buzz. This focus on specializations, combined with a deep crafting system and a dangerous world, means you will want to make some friends. The game puts a very heavy focus on social features and everything that comes along with player interaction. Forming guilds to take on greater challenges and build your empire, more on that in a moment, will be a good idea if you want to survive. So now we seem to get a little bit more of what maybe that original Lumberyard stuff was dealing with, the idea of lots of social interactions and communities and people being at the heart of this product, which I think is very, very, very important. Immediately, just that paragraph sets me in mind of something like, say, Ark, where you're really looking to group up as a big tribe and there is a lot of strength in numbers. So I'm keen on seeing how New World aims to deal with this in a true MMO setting. A lot of people are nowadays looking for solo-friendly opportunities when it comes to MMOs, and I fully understand that, but I also think the genre has made a lot of concessions in recent years by catering to those attitudes and forgetting that realistically you're playing a massively multiplayer online game, and to focus deeply on those elements is becoming something of a lost art. The phrase empire is used in this paragraph as well, which they claim they'll come back to. They really don't. Building an empire is a very tall order and idea. If this game's going to be about empires v empires of players, we're talking lots of players and very broad scope, but they don't ground that with any examples for us. So I hope to see some other press coming soon that talks about it in a bit better way. Moving on, they give us a kind of specific moment-to-moment play-by-play. We were spawned in a small outpost as a mere level 1 character with nothing but a sword and our wits about us. There were vendors around is where we could craft gear and refine materials, and rocks and trees from which we could gather. Each tree can be individually chopped down, complete with a physical falling animation, which was impressive to see in an MMO world. The crafting that was open to us, along with the moment-to-moment gameplay and movement, made the game feel like a survival game in the vein of Rust, Conan Exiles, or Ark. So it seems we might have been onto something a little bit with Ark Survival Evolved, which coincidentally I've been playing a reasonable amount of recently. I'm not sure why they're so impressed by trees falling down in this day and age, but again, that's what was relevant about the forest we saw in the tweet at the head of this video. The thought that that's all dynamic objects, it's all chop downable and you can regrow new ones. This sapling here by the river, does that grow into a full tree, for example? Are curious things to think about. A bit on combat afterwards, which is good to hear, but probably expected. The game is action combat based, does not rely on tab targeting, although you can press tab and lock on to a target in a Dark Souls type of way. You have a stamina bar and can attack, sprint, roll, block your way through combat, which makes the game feel very fluid and responsive even at this early stage. We're definitely not looking at classic old school standstill long cast bar design with tab targeting, and that definitely ticks all the right boxes for me. Obviously, how clunky that feels, how it works under lag, and a million other variables kind of make this paragraph hard to be super excited about. We'll have to wait for gameplay videos and things to really know with that, but good to hear that they're going in the right direction anyway. They also have a description of using a musket. I picked up a musket at a later point in the demo. I was impressed by the hit registration and animations for such an early build. As someone who enjoys FPS games, the shooting felt good. They also say they manually aimed it. I'm guessing that's their way of trying to explain that it was FPS style, but it doesn't have to be that. If they have FPS shooting, does that mean they also have the option for FPS sword and magic play too? That remains to be seen. Now, this next paragraph is very important. It's a huge part of the game, and I guarantee will be responsible for the vast majority of discussion below this video and most people's purchasing decisions. So get ready, here it is. PvP seems to be at the very focal heart of the game. Okay, let's just wait a second for the hundreds of people to click the X of the video. And currently, when you die, you drop all of your gear, which can then be looted by other players. This does mean that the gear you acquire is not very difficult to get, but there will be more powerful gear that offers a greater risk for a potentially larger reward. You might be more powerful and effective in combat, but if you die, you will lose that powerful set of equipment. So, That's a pretty big design philosophy. That's gonna really affect pretty much everything. It's an open world PvP experience. Again, there were pretty significant hints and discussions about this before this article, but there it is, listed out in plain English. We're talking RuneScape Wilderness. We're talking much more old school MMO design, and for some of you, that will be a deal breaker, and you're gonna be saying goodbye to New World at the door. For many more of us, I think we're willing to see where this can lead. I certainly have fond memories of my old RuneScape days and messing about in the wildies, but I also have a lot of very unfond memories and frustrations to remember. Now, I do think it's important to tether and ground this paragraph before we run away with assumptions on how the game can be played. This says nothing to the frequency of PvP happening, nothing about adjoining systems like Karma, though the article will mention something in a second. It has no mention of restrictions on killing areas or level disparity between players or caps on the amount of loot you can drop. There are any number of different QoL features and design that can be implemented to eliminate frustrations and leave that boiling heart of excitement and adrenaline from being in these open world PvP areas where there's a lot of risk and a lot of rewards. So I'm willing to wait and see how New World irons those out in the late 2000s. It could be 2019, 20, 21 by the time this MMO comes out. And that's a lot of time to look at the history of MMOs and see how to do this in the most fun way possible. I'd be curious to see what your thoughts on that are below. Winding down to the later areas of the article here, which I'm trying not to just read entirely verbatim. They say this brings us onto territory control, which will be a large part of the end game. You can capture land and build on it, creating outposts and bases for your guild to operate from, which can house more advanced crafting stations, giving you access to better gear. Your territory can expand over time, and in the current version of the game, there was a faint line indicating the boundary of a guild's territory. You'll be able to tax players that wish to operate or build within your territory, which allows their structures to be under your protection for a price. So it really does seem like it's all about that control that players have and how that dynamically affects the game. While killing other players is possible, it is discouraged by a criminal justice system that we sadly weren't given details of yet. But we do know there will be bounties that can be placed on a player's head. These sort of features allow the introduction of emergent gameplay where the players create the content for themselves. Again, recalling back to some of those early ideas for the MMO we heard 2 years back. With criminals with bounties on their heads comes bounty hunters, harking back to old PK versus anti-PK days of Ultima Online. Hard to tell how much of that is the writer of the article versus the devs themselves. Moving back, they talk about the environment in their closing stages. They say the world is massive, really massive. We played in a very small part of it and it still took some time to move around. The environment was also incredibly dense, with the undergrowth being very thick and lush. To be honest with you, none of these observations from the article writer mean anything to me. It doesn't matter how big the game is. You have to look at it within the context of travel speed and travel systems and bypasses people get. It won't become apparent how big this MMO is until a long time after it's come out, really. They also have this tidbit about the environment here. Wolves hunt in packs and take a few people to bring down safely, and you may have just as much chance of taking down a bear on your own as you do in real life, so keep your distance. Literally sounds like me taming dire bears in Ark right now. And then they say this: we got around to some PvP in the demo. It reminded me of something like Mountain Blade or Chivalry. Lots of positioning and posturing followed manic flailing of weapons. The combat will no doubt evolve with the addition of skills, spells, more weapons, more armor, but what I saw was fun to play on its own. Not very convincing so far. We started the PvP off by blowing up a wall with explosives to gain access to the enemy keep, while being told firmly not to shoot said explosives while they were being set up by some brave volunteer, because they really do have a large kill radius. Even suggestions of friendly fire there getting implicitly mentioned there. The article concludes with details about its scope in terms of being an online product. Listen to this. They say the world aims to feature up to 1,000 players at this moment in time, although the tentative goal was tens of thousands at some point. It seems like they're going to push their technology as far as it can go when it comes to player count. This may come with drawbacks in other areas as time progresses, so it remains to be seen. This is going to be closer to a persistent MMO experience than it is to a survival-based game like Rust or Ark. And I think that final comparison there that the article writer makes is a very important one. But yeah, 1,000 players might seem a lot lower than many of us are expecting. They close with some fluff, but no more tangible details, really. There you have it. That's the Tech Advisor article. That's a lot to chew on, really, and really helps to define the direction and style of MMO that this is seeking to be. Definitely lays out a lot of their philosophies very well, which I must admit I do like the sound of most, if not all of them, but with a big caveat, and that's that the implementation is right. These are such lofty, great, brilliant ideas for an MMO, but always come down to the implementation, and the slightest missteps can really take what would be quite beautiful and fun and engaging and turn it miserable. So I'm going to have to be tentatively cautious and see what more information we get before really knowing how much of a success this will be. I think they've got the right ideas, we'll just see how they go with it. I did mention a moment ago that it wasn't just the tweet and this article, but there was another thing released, and that's over on the official website, which you can check out here, possibly more interesting to you all because it comes straight from the devs. The assets and screens and things we've already seen have been released through other media areas. We do get this kind of interesting pattern design here with, I'm guessing, more Latin, and I haven't translated. Maybe someone could do that in the background. A bit of a hint as to the setting a bit more, maybe. But here's what they say for alpha sign-up. The alpha sign-up is a bit of a gimmick, really. It's still just taking you to the Amazon storefront page where you give them your email, and many of us might have done that 2 years ago. Here's what they say: carve your destiny alongside hundreds of other players in a savage and arcane 17th century world. There's that setting again. Survive murderous player bandits band together to build fortified strongholds or strike out to claim a piece of the haunted frontier. And yes, haunting and demonology and that kind of stuff definitely seems to be a big part of this. Here they say discover, venture into a massive hostile world filled with mystery, vast fortune, and supernatural forces. Create, craft hundreds of items from magical elixirs and deadly weapons to sprawling fortifications. Battle, fight for survival against enemy raiders, brutal wilderness, and gathering evil. Unite, join forces with scores of other players to form powerful companies of craftspeople, mercenaries, prospectors, and architects. This one being important because it's talking about stuff outside of combat, okay? You could be a prospector or an architect. Okay, I'm getting on board here. And down here as well, conquer, claim territories, and leverage your dominion to consolidate power and compel loyalty. Some of that empire building stuff maybe there. They released a single article, the first piece of news that's ever come out, Explorers Wanted. We are excited to announce that New World will enter alpha soon. Be one of the first people to set foot on a mysterious continent. Join a company and work together to claim territories, build thriving settlements, fight off player bandits, and push back the dark and wild forces that occupy the land to leave your mark on history. Adventure, exploration, and opportunity await you on Terra Vitae Aeternum. So that's an interesting topic to me as well. They're opening en masse alpha access. I wonder whether they'll harm the game's reputation to show a flimsy, early work-in-progress product to the masses. It kind of feels safer to me to wait for beta as an MMO for like your big opening for people. And even then, when we call it beta, it's mostly just like a press event. But maybe opening early will allow them to listen to player feedback and avoid some of the pitfalls I know many of us are scared are looming over for them. The next thing of somewhat minor note on the website is the system requirements at the bottom of this FAQ you can see here. Now, if you pause the video, you'll notice they're reasonably demanding, but it is already the second half of 2018. The game might not release for another year or beyond now. Perhaps it's appropriate. I suppose in truth it does excite me, as it could mean the game looks good, but also it's an MMO, it's likely to be poorly optimized and possibly run like a piece of crap no matter what you put it on. Maybe that's just the cynic in me. The last thing really to talk about in terms of the website is if you do follow the links quite cunningly for being an alpha tester, it will take you to this alphaforum.newworld.com. They don't seem to really want people at, but it says, hello, if you are currently a New World alpha playtester, please log in above. If you aren't, we'd love to have you. Please visit our website and register for alpha. So alpha might already be ongoing with some people with accounts, and this is where you would go as their official forums to report stuff about the game. It's just, as far as I know, no one's really in there just yet. So, the last thing, and possibly one of the most exciting things I want to show you guys today, is actually nothing to do with the news and the bombs of this week, but a little bit earlier. It's to do with that video you might have been wondering about I opened today's production with. Well, that's not the only one. There were two, and I'll show you the second in a second. These are kind of old, actually. They originate over on the New World subreddit, where mysterious user Conquistad has posted twice now, and it seems this is promotional material that they gave to early playtesters. Now, one of the videos blatantly says New World in it and is obviously associated with the project. The other one is this, and it's not confirmed 100% to be New World, but I mean, it seems it pretty much is. Be aware, it's very low FPS and pretty janky, but here is the first gameplay we have seen of the title.
Group up in parties, large or small, for coordination, shared chat, maps, status awareness, buffs, and experience. Working together has never been so easy. Guilds and alliances enable the organization of hundreds of players, with their own tasks and roles in large-scale efforts towards amassing martial and economic power.
Now, there's an enormous amount we could talk about there, from the script, the idea of grouping up never having been so easy. Now, that's some MMO philosophy I recognize very much as a GW2 player, to the music we hear in the background, to the art, to the gear, to the animations. Probably a video all on its own, and maybe something I'll commit to doing. If you guys really want to see that, let me know. But for today, that's about it, everyone. We've been talking for quite a while, and now you should be pretty much caught up on the state of this MMO development. Thanks very much for watching, guys. As always, it's kind of weird being out of my wheelhouse, but pretty rewarding, and I would like to talk more about this game. If I'm in love with anything, I really am the setting. That video we opened with is incredible. That idea of ghosts and haunting and grim, macabre underbelly of infested, undead lands. Ooh, that I could definitely load my plate with. But it depends if you want to see it. I had a very positive response last time I did a video, but it was ages ago now, and I don't know how people feel. So let's see, does the PvP stuff turn you off? Let's hear what you think down below, and I will see you all next time.